Hello, hello. This is the third edition of my podcast, so I thank anybody for tuning in, listening. So let's just get right into it. I just wanted to mention that today is actually the 40th anniversary of the Miracle on Ice. So 40 years ago today in the Olympics, the Russians, who were, I believe, 12-0 at that point, actually, they were expected to just dominate the Americans as they had. The Americans had never defeated them. They were 12-0 against the Americans, and they actually dominated most of that game. I believe they had 39 shots on goal to the Americans 16, and the goalie, I don't remember his name now, the Americans, but so he had 36 saves. I mean, which is just absolutely ridiculous. And the Americans won 4-3. And obviously it's just one of those moments in not only sporting history but American history that it brings a lot of pride, and it should be remembered and celebrated. Obviously it was in the midst of the Cold War. This is obviously 1980, so it was a very hot Cold War. Reagan had just been elected president, and tensions were really high. So this was a big deal. Obviously I wasn't alive then, but I've seen the game. Everyone should see that game because it's just an incredible game. Even if you don't like hockey, you can feel the tension when you're watching it. It's something that we got to remember. They made a movie about it. I would recommend watching the movie too. Miracle, great movie. And so I just wanted to start us off with that little reminder. It's always important to remember your history, especially nowadays, American history. I feel like I don't want to say it's not being remembered, but unfortunately, this revisionist history that is sort of swept our culture, our educational system, and all that, and doesn't promote things like these, the exceptional things that we've done. Unfortunately, only kind of focuses on the negative. So, I just wanted to start us off with that, and then next, the other big thing that's happening today in the sporting world is Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. So, even if you're not a boxing fan, there's so many, just great things to watch in this fight. I mean, you got a Great Britain versus America, a classic rivalry. You got two just gigantic heavyweights, 169, 167, and they both weighed in about 20 pounds heavier. I think 16 to 20 pounds heavier than they were the last fight. Tyson Fury is 273 pounds. That's a gigantic man. 6'9", 273 pounds. And Wilder is 6'7", 231, right? And he's also, I think he was, 212 or something like that when he fought Fury the first time around. So he looked huge. He looked thick, dude. I mean, he looked thick. Fury didn't want to take his shirt off. Now we all know he's not exactly a physical specimen, but he's definitely a bit of a freak. I mean, he's you can't deny his quickness. You can't deny his agility. He's got great feet. He's got great movement. He's a thinker in there. He's got a high IQ, but so is Wilder. Wilder has you can clearly see he's got a high IQ there. And you always know a boxer has a high IQ when they never close their eyes. There's still a lot of boxers out there who, when a punch is coming or, they're in the thick of it, they're up against a bigger guy or something like that, and they tend to close their eyes. Wilder's always got his eyes open, the same as Fury. And that's the only way you can get out of the way of the punches that they get out of. So even the most veteran boxers, most of them, they close their eyes, they tense up. But the key to winning is you gotta always keep your eyes open. A side note, I remember watching UFC fights, Stipe Miocic and Ngannou. Anybody knows anything about UFC? This guy was freaking humongous. He was like 6'5", worked in the sand mines of Africa somewhere, and this guy was just a monster. And Stipe Miocic is the big guy too. He's about 6'4", and everyone thought Ngannou was gonna just maul him, was just gonna kill him. But Stipe Miocic, who has the better technique, what he did was he didn't get rattled. He didn't get nervous when this guy started swinging. He kept his eyes open, and that's the key. It's a harder thing to do than you might think, to keep your eyes open, even for these veteran guys. When you got a guy who's bigger than you, who can kill you with one shot, swinging at you with all his might, you might tend to flinch a little bit. You might get a little nervous. You might, close your eyes. But that is the key, and that's going to be the key for Fury tonight. Now, Fury said he wants to come out and get a knockout in the first 2 rounds. This is a guy that I think he's 29, 0-1. He has about 19 knockouts. So, even though he's 6'9" and 270 now, he is not a knockout artist. Deontay Wilder is freaking 42, 0-1. And he's got 41 knockouts out of those 42, 43 fights. And this guy he has put people to sleep. I mean, he's a freaking dangerous man, and he's considered the hardest puncher in the history of boxing. So that's what Fury's facing tonight. And the reason he has a lot of success is because he's 6'9", because of his length. But this guy basically matches him. Even though he's 2 inches shorter than Deontay Wilder, he's got the longer reach. So he's in there a guy, he's in there, with a guy who on equal footing, who can reach him, and is the scariest man probably on the face of the earth. So I don't know how I feel about Fury's game plan going in. If he's going to try to go in there and slug with him in the first 2 rounds, that doesn't sound good to me. But I do like him pressing the action. That's what he's got to do. He's got to press the action against Wilder. He's got to, back him up, put him on his back foot, because a lot of people don't press Wilder. They're intimidated, number one, which Fury's not going to be intimidated, because first off, he already fought him once, and it went 12 rounds, and he won. Even though he got clipped at the end, well, not clipped, he got hit twice. He got hit once, and then once going on the way down. And but he beat him. I mean, he outboxed him for 10 rounds. He should have won that fight. So I don't know. The thing is, I don't know if he can do that any better. So I understand why he's looking for the knockout. One, he doesn't want to leave it in the judge's hands. And two, how he can't really. That's the one thing missing from his game. So if he can develop more power, and certainly if he can put on weight, and if he can get more power and set his feet and hit harder without losing any of the agility, the speed, that's the question. Will he lose some of that? I don't know. But if he can do that without losing any of that speed, then holy crap. I mean, I might pick him to win. For me, it's really, I don't know. It's honestly, it's a toss-up. I still really, I think you got to wait and see what happens in the first 2 rounds. Like if Fury catches him with a big shot early, I think he finishes him. Because I think that's the difference between this fight and the last fight, is he hit Wilder a few times and he stunned him, but he never followed up with it. Whether if it was just nerves, or whether it was being out of the ring, whatever it was for 3 years. Remember, this guy he beats Vladimir Klitschko in 2015, who was undefeated and was the heavyweight champion of the world for 10 years straight, which is ridiculous. So he defeats him. And then he balloons up to 420 pounds. Everybody knows he was an alcoholic. He was doing cocaine all the time, and he was a mess. And so then he comes back 3 years later, and after losing the 147 pounds or whatever, and training for maybe only 6 months or so, he goes in a ring and fights Deontay Wilder. I mean, you'd have to be insane to do that. That's one confident man. So he certainly doesn't lack confidence, and neither does Wilder. If I had to pick somebody, although my heart is with Fury, if I had to bet my life on it, if you're holding a gun to my head, I'd probably have to go Wilder. But if you're not holding a gun to my head, I'd go Fury, if that makes any sense. Because Fury's definitely the better boxer, no doubt about that. But I think Wilder's boxing game is underestimated. You know, I mean, you can see it in there. He's always alert. He's always watching. He's always calm. The key is to be calm. Are you always calm? And he's certainly always calm. And so is Fury. You know, and that's the only way you can be the best. So, all I really hope is that it's just a good fight. I think that's all anybody really hopes. But I think the first 2 rounds will tell you probably what you need to know. Now, again, not to contradict myself, but the last fight, it took Wilder, 10 rounds to finally hit him with something. You know, he hits him once in the 10th round, the back of the head. He goes down, not much of a, didn't do much. But he started to time him. So I think Fury's right for not doing just the same thing. He can't just do the same thing because he will definitely get caught, I think. But I think we're going to, I think we'll see a better version of Fury, but I think we'll also see a better version of Wilder. And Wilder looked humongous. I mean, he's the heaviest he's ever weighed. And I doubt he's going to lack for speed or any of those other things. So, now if he hits Fury, I can't imagine he gets back up. So, I think wait and see what the first 2 rounds tell you. Now, moving on from sports, to get into a little bit more. One of the reasons, again, I wanted to do this podcast is just I feel like the country, the culture. I mean, obviously, we all hear the same stuff over and over again. That there's a huge divide, a huge political divide between the right and the left, and I don't want to go down that same old typical road. But yeah, one of the reasons I wanted to do this was not lend a voice to those people that aren't being heard or something like that. You can go watch Fox News and that. There's plenty of outlets. Again, I don't mean to always come off as sounding like a Republican or anything like that. One, I don't really want to get into like labels or what I am. I'm just someone who's concerned about the state of the country right now, because while it's still the greatest country in the world, there's a lot of stats that might unfortunately at this point kind of prove the opposite. It's sort of a strange dichotomy, because those certain aspects that make America great are definitely still there. Immigrants still constantly come here for the opportunity. And that's definitely there. But I think the biggest thing is that opportunity used to be there. I think now it's favoring immigrants. It's favoring foreigners. There's so many laws and legislation and stuff like that that seems to almost give them an upper hand, while people who live here, they're struggling. It's like clean up your own house first. I would think before you might. It's not wrong. I want to help others. Everybody wants to help others. But I always say that the person who has the hardest time getting to Harvard is a kid who lives down the block. Unfortunately, we overlook too many times the people that are right here in our own backyards, our own community, to try to help others living thousands of miles away. And again, we have a ton of money. We are the richest country in the world, so we should be helping others. But it seems like common sense to me that you might want to help, your friends and your neighbors and even people you don't know live in another state or something like that, and make sure that they have everything they need before you spend tons of money, building wells in Africa or whatever it is. So I was listening to this, as I'm obviously trying to start a podcast. I turned on the TV the other day, and I turned on, one of those public access channels, 521 or whatever. And it says something like, how to, build a podcast. I started a podcast. It's like, oh, this might be interesting. And, it was right here in New York City. And I was like, all right, hey, let me check this out. So I turn it on, and it's 4 women on a panel, and it was 2 black women and 2 white women or something like that. And again, that's fine. Hey, if you can teach me how to build a successful podcast, let's go. So I'd like to hear it. The first question out of the moderator's mouth is how do we get rid of white men in podcasting? And I was like, I've not exactly what I was expecting, but I shouldn't be shocked at the same time. Apparently there's a problem. There's too many white guys doing podcasts. And so she asks, so the other Caucasian lady or whatever answers, and she's like, she goes on talking about how she's been doing all this work, trying to start, podcasts, helping other women start other podcasts. I forget one of them. One of them was called like So Many White Boys or something like that. And basically, it's these 2 black girls, and they have like some token white guy at the end. I don't know, some kind of craziness. Anyway, look, first off, podcasting is something that's only 10 years old. It's not one of these industries that's been around forever that's traditionally dominated by white men. It's not like something like politics or something like that. It's something that came out organically. It's a different medium, akin to radio, akin to TV, as the mediums through which we digest our information have changed over time, going back from, the town crier or the, guy riding by on his horse yelling out the news, to the newspaper, to the to the radio, to the TV, and so on and so forth. Here comes again. Podcasting is only 10 years old or so. And so she says, there's about 70% of the podcasts are done by men. First of all, she doesn't just say white men. She says men. So apparently she's against, I don't know, all men doing podcasting. First of all, 70% to 30%, some kind of like just completely out of whack ratio. And so she says the next thing that stuns me. She says we need to get it down to 50-50. And that ties in, unfortunately, to the game that liberals and Democrats are playing. That this equality of outcome idea. The thing that, of course, made America great and separated us from most of the rest of the world was equality of opportunity, never equality of outcome. And this new idea of equality of outcome of putting your hands in places where they don't belong, and intentionally making it so that things are always completely 100% fair. Let things happen organically. Podcasting, again, like I said, it's a new medium. It's only been around 10 years. The people that started it because they were good at it, and they had an idea, and it happened organically. It's not something that you need to interject yourself and make it 50-50. That's ridiculous. That's completely antithetical to what America's all about and what America represents. Again, America's supposed to be a meritocracy, right? If you do something well, you should be rewarded for it, right? You don't want, now she's not the government or whatever, but you don't want people complaining and saying that something isn't fair because it isn't exactly a 50-50 split. Well, then, do we make everything a 50-50 split? Do we, most of the people in prison are men. Do we have to, make that 50-50? That would say that, basketball players, NBA players, we'd have to make that 50% white. Where do these quotas end? Where do they go? Again, African Americans are only 10% of the population. So, I constantly hear it in baseball that there aren't enough African American players. Well, there are. There's about 8-9% of the Major League Baseball is African American players, and that coincides with the population. And there's actually far more there's a lot of African players. Unfortunately, they all come from Cuba and Dominican Republic and wherever. But it's like these I don't know. Again, I hate to put labels, liberals, Democrats, yada yada, but it's these people that just see sexism and racism and homophobia. They see it everywhere. They see the world through they have this myopic view. They see it through this tainted lens. Their perception of reality of the world has become warped, and and it makes for a very unpleasant. It's why they created a monster here. It's the reason why I'm doing a podcast. I'm constantly hearing these things, and they don't understand that when my generation, grew up, and now that we're getting older, we didn't grow up with, I grew up in Queens, New York. I grew up in one of the most diverse places in the world. And, everybody just got along. There were no problems. It's only now that when you get older and you hear the previous generation, again, that's where I think still a lot of this kind of comes from. I don't know if they feel guilty or whatever, but they're the ones who are constantly bringing up, race and sex and interjecting it into everything. And it just it drives you nuts. So needless to say, I only watched about 2 minutes of that, and that was it. But again, it's stuff like this that I wanted to just, I don't know, talk about, bring another perspective that I think is never heard. Honest debate, really like brutally honest debate. Because I think we talk about race and sex and stuff like that constantly, but it's not honest. Everybody's always walking on eggshells. Everybody always feels uncomfortable to say certain things, and and I'm not uncomfortable. I don't really have much of a filter, so I'm basically just gonna say what I think, and if you don't agree with it, you don't agree with it. I'll live. But another one of the things I hear a lot was, as I mentioned already, equality of outcome. Now we have an election coming up, and we've got 5, 6 Democrats now into the race. Anybody see the Democratic debate? I'm sure some people did. Mayor Mike joined the Democratic debate now, and he's, by all metrics today, is not a Democrat. I mean, he's a real Democrat. He's a classic liberal Democrat. He believes in capitalism. He believes in quality of opportunity, but not equality of outcome. And unfortunately, unless you believe in quality of outcome, you're not a real Democrat by today's standards. So you have socialists, communists. I've been waiting for somebody to call him a communist, and thankfully Mayor Mike did. I actually thought Mike did a good job. Again, he's not quick-witted, so he doesn't have the sort of comebacks and retorts that Sanders or Elizabeth Warren do. Which on one hand is kind of refreshing. I hate it when the politicians have these pre-prepared like little lines, these little jabs that they're going to throw at people. And again, why are they bashing him just because he's a billionaire? Like what happened to this country where we bashed people who have money? I don't have money, but I don't bash people who have exorbitant wealth. And again, as long as they made it honestly. Now, it's questionable with Mayor Mike. I know he has some ties to China. And we'll get to the Chinese, but I thought it was actually refreshing to hear some of the things he said. He's reasonable. He understands that first of all, Sanders can't win. Nobody wants a communist, and Sanders is a communist. If you honeymoon in the Soviet Union, and you take vacations to Cuba, wherever, and you love Fidel Castro, and you're a communist, And I watched John Oliver the other day, who tried to break down Medicare for all. But of course, I mean, the guy's so far left, he can't get an honest assessment of anything. But basically, of course, he said he's for Medicare for all. Although every time he made a point, he admitted that it is going to be a ridiculous amount of money. So how does it help then? How does it help if it's going to cost more? Now, one of the interesting things he did say was, one of the common complaints is that, the lines for Medicare is going to be, like it is in Canada or the UK. You're waiting. The waits to see a doctor or so on and so forth are very long. But if what he says is true, that people end up waiting 6 months or so anyway, just to, because of the prices here, because things are so expensive, because healthcare is so expensive, they end up often putting off treatment or getting a surgery or so on and so forth. So they actually end up waiting a long time anyway. So I had to give him credit for that. So it's a fair point. but again, you know, so much of the media now, it's controlled by the lefty, you know, and I hate to say stuff like that because I sound like such a Republican, but you know, watch any late night talk show host. I mean, is there a single conservative one or a Republican or even a moderate one? I mean, they're all John Oliver, Bill Maher, all the late night talk show hosts. And now, I mean, half of them have gone just straight into political talk shows themselves. Seth Meyers, Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel. You know, they're all political and they're all just biased left-wing people that just want to just destroy Trump. And you know, it's like, how do you forget about half the country? 63 million or 60 million people voted for this guy. That's no small number. You know, to just throw them out and say, you know what, we're not going to talk to you at all, is crazy to me. You know, and so the way I understand why, unfortunately, our colleges are as crazy as they are, and why, you know, there's so many young people are left wing, hardcore left wing people. It's because you know, they don't get any honest information. It's all biased. There's no such thing as real, honest, neutral, unbiased opinion anymore, and it's sad. It's really sad. I mean, and the one news outlet for conservatives, Republicans, Fox News. So we have one, and it's called, you know, it's constantly, you know, bashed and called state television, this and that, and the Democrats won't host a debate on it. It's like we can't even have one channel for ourselves. I mean, you got MSNBC, you got CNN, you got all the late night talk show hosts. I mean, you go on and on with how many left wing platforms there are. So, yeah, the state of the culture is sad right now, and I don't know. You certainly can't leave it to its own devices. You know, you can't say, well, it'll work itself out organically. The pendulum will swing back. No, that's not going to happen unless you stand. You know, I'm torn between, you know, fighting and saying something, or just kind of, you know, letting it go, hoping it will work its way back. But I don't think you can rely on that. And oddly enough, the people that are kind of leading the charge are comedians. They're the only people who seem to be like saying anything, questioning the PC culture, questioning, you know, how ridiculous things are, you know, how far left, you know, the cancel culture, how just out of hand things are. It's comedians. It's people like Joe Rogan. It's people like Bill Burr. You know, and a lot of them are big time lefties. You know, but they understand one of the incredible freedoms we have here is free speech. You know, a lot of other countries, they don't have that. They don't have that the way that we do. So that's why when you see things, you know, there was just a law passed, or I think, a judge just made a ruling that now you have to use the preferred pronoun for a person. So, you know, if you have a transgender person, whatever they want you to call them, you have to call them that pronoun, or you can be, you know, fined or even possibly imprisoned, you know. So this stuff is real. It's got real consequences, you know, and it's got completely out of hand, and it's sad, really. But you know, I don't want to be depressing here. I don't want to be depressing. Another interesting story I just read. I didn't read the whole thing, but apparently in Oregon, a lot of Oregonians, I think you call them Oregonians, they hate the left-wing government over there so much, and they're crazy over there. They're crazy over in Oregon and Portland. They're insane. That now they're trying to get the state of Idaho, which borders Oregon, to take them in. They want the state of Idaho to move its border to take in these Oregonians who feel that their government has gotten too crazy, has gotten too far left. So, I mean, if that's not you know, an example of the craziness of the state that we're in, I don't know what is. You know, and another thing I was thinking about was on the way over here was another big topic is reparations. Now, of course, this is controversial to say the least, but first of all, it's the massive amount of money. How do you calculate these things? Again, I feel like nobody's really talking about these things in depth. Like, they get mentioned, they get thrown out there. You know, they're a nice phrase, like, you know, oh, you want reparation, Medicare for all, free college. But of course, when you want real details, those seem to elude people. You know, the people who are pushing for them. Now I will have to say, I think in the recent month or few weeks, hey, you haven't heard much about that, which I guess is a sign. I don't know. Maybe some of the Democrats are coming to their senses, but how do you quantify that to begin? I mean, the massive amounts of money that they want. How do you quantify that? I think of something like bail, right? Here in New York City, they just got rid of the bail. And now, because of all the craziness where people are robbing banks and they're getting arrested and then they're being let out in the street, a few minutes later, they're going out and robbing another bank. So even the hardcore lefty Democrats realize, hey, maybe we've got to set some sort of bail for people who commit extreme offenses. Although even they're getting pushback too. And I get that. There's some reasoning behind getting rid of all bail. I think things are totally skewed in favor of the rich, not necessarily intentionally, but it's all about monetary value. That's the way they hurt you. They don't want to put you in jail when you commit a crime. They just want to fine you. So first you got to get maybe an expensive lawyer. Then you got to pay court fees. Then you got to pay fees or fines for whatever it is you did. And so, of course, it's going to favor the rich. So if you got a poor person there and a rich person, they both committed the same crime, well, the rich person's going to be like, yeah, sure, I'll pay whatever you want me to pay. I got no problem with that. And meanwhile, of course, the little guy gets screwed. And so I get it. There's some merit to that argument. But to say no bail at all, there was a reason it was started in the first place, and that's to keep people who might be flight risks. People who commit grievous offenses, obviously murder or anything like that. I mean, right now there's no bail for any of that. I mean, you commit murder, there's no bail right now. And so I get it. I get the argument. You're innocent until proven guilty. So there are people, it's happened, who have been accused of murder or something other, some other heinous act, and they've been innocent. And maybe they spent, a long time in jail. I think they say something like 200,000 people right now are in jail. But, at the same time, most people who get accused of a crime, there's probably some validity to it. So what do you do? Of course, you got to hold people somewhere, especially if they committed a grievous offense. You can't let them out to, possibly do, strike again or flee the country or something like that. So there's got to be some sort of balance. And I think, number one, I think they should get away from the monetary fines and fees, and hurting people that way. I mean, I guess I get why the state does it, because they want money, or why the city or what, that's all they care about. They just want an influx of money. That's why you get these insane tickets. That's why you got red light cameras everywhere. That's why it's crazy. It's all about money, 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 money. So I get it, but I think what you got to just do, I think there needs to be a punishment. And the punishment has to fit the crime. But I think you send someone to jail, whether it's for a day or 2 days or whatever it's going to be. Trust me, nobody wants to go to jail. That's gonna go a lot further than bleeding someone dry. I mean, you bleed someone dry, now they're in debt or whatever. Maybe they got to sell their house. Well, they're probably more likely to go commit a crime, especially people who are in for some sort of drug offense or drinking or something like that, or gambling. Well, if they do that and you arrest them for it, and then you take all their money away, well, and they were doing it in the first place because maybe they were depressed or they were angry, something, they were having a hard time. Well, you take that away now, and now they got no money. They're going to be even more bitter. They're going to be even more frustrated. And so you're basically just setting them back even further. Yes, you're punishing them, but it's not a punishment that they can learn something from. They need to be able to learn from it and become a better person. You want to scare people into doing the right thing sometimes. I mean, that's just the honest approach. So I understand why they do it, but it's also just gotten out of hand. And back to the reparations thing. I mean, I hear some people say, well, the Holocaust happened, and so now Germany, you can sue, and they give people back, millions of dollars in some cases. It's not similar because number one, yes, it was a direct assault against a certain group of people, but unfortunately, it happened during a period, a certain time period. It happened during a war. It happened much more recently. So it's an easier thing to be able to give those people back money for what they lost, for what they endured. But how do you calculate uh, uh, reparations for something that happened, that ended over 150 years ago? I mean, are you also including, I don't know, anything that's happened? You including people suffering under Jim Crow? Or it's just too crazy. You just can't assess it. You couldn't do it fairly and rationally. There's too many variables. Also, who gets what? Like, who's considered black? Who's considered, how, like, would you have to be 50%, 75%, 5%? Who qualifies then? And of course, it's a slippery slope. I mean, what would you be giving Native Indians too? I mean, if anyone has an equal claim, it's possibly then. I mean, the Irish could have a great claim too. I mean, people don't always think that what happened to the Irish was as bad, but I would argue it was even worse. I mean, you're talking about 1,000 years of slavery, of taking people's land, of murder, of rape, unfortunately, and all those things. And so I don't understand how you can possibly reasonably quantify that. So, you know what? I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll be back in about 5 minutes. So thank you for listening. And welcome back. Again, want to thank everyone for listening. Again, you're not going to agree with all the things I say. Maybe not even most of it. I don't know. But hopefully, you can listen to a different viewpoint. And hey, as long as you learn something, that's all I care about. And I would appreciate anyone out there. If you have anything to say, if you want to, whatever, if you want to talk to me, certainly if you want to come in, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. Um, One of the another thing I wanted to sort of get into, it's a sort of a big topic, but just I guess science in general. Um, and again, this ties into everything I'm kind of talking about today, which is the state of our culture and what we believe and what we don't believe, what we're accepting, and how we've just totally shifted. Science, again, I hate to use labels, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, the Democratic Party was always the party of science, and Republicans were, with the Bible holders, the gun-toting rednecks. But it seems that things have definitely shifted. Democrats today and science, they basically, the problem is they cherry pick. They accept what scientific facts they want to accept, and the others they ignore. So, let's say if it comes to gender, I don't think this should be controversial to say that there are only men and there are only women. There are only two genders. Okay, there is nothing else. There's nothing in between. You can transition from one gender to another, but it does not mean that that is a gender. Okay, hence transgender. You're transitioning to another gender, and we can get into that whether I agree with that or not. But it's this, that goes along with climate change. Again, that's such a hot topic because it's often seen that Republicans don't accept climate change, and of course Democrats think the world is going to end in a few years, and so they're constantly out there pushing it. But again, I don't think that debate is being framed properly. I think if you ask most Republicans, they do, or at least they are willing to accept climate change, but it's never presented to them properly. Because the divide in our country, there always seems to be two sets of facts. You always have the liberal facts, and then you got the right wing facts. And I think people just don't know what to believe. I think if you're, if you consider yourself a Democrat or left wing, you're willing to believe anything. You put climate change, and I get it. Hey, look, if the world is going to end and none of us are going to be here, yes, it should be the most pressing topic. But I think most people would say, well, I've seen very little evidence that we are going to die anytime soon. Again, and this is one of those things where unfortunately we have to rely, most of us, on the experts, on the people who are out there in the field doing the testing and such. The people who are at the polar ice caps, the people who are, maybe, I don't know, in California studying the fires, or the meteorologists or whatever. We have to rely on them. So, if 97%, which is the common, one of the common facts, if 97% of scientists or whatever, the climate scientists agree that climate change is happening, then I'm going to agree with them. So I don't think most people, especially on the right, deny that climate change exists. I just don't think we have been presented, consistent facts that say, one, it exists, and then there's the sort of sub-debate, is it created by mankind, or is it just natural, or is it both? And clearly, I think a valid point is the weather does change, or at least climate does change. Excuse me. We had an ice age 10,000 years ago. If it happened again, would we blame it automatically on man's, greediness and our us polluting the waters and so on and so forth? Well, if the evidence is there, I think most of us would believe it. I just don't think it's presented properly. And unfortunately, of course, on the left, they love to fear monger. They're always telling you the world's going to end. They're always using these different stats. They've been telling us it's going to end for 30 years now. So I wish they would just call to my Democratic friends, just stop with the deadlines. Just stop with these big announcements that we're all going to die pretty soon. just present the facts as they are, and just do it in a coherent, way, and just lay them out and say, here's what, here's what we know, absolutely. And, anything that's conjecture, or speculative, we're more than happy to listen to that too, but just do it without all the fear that comes behind it. So I think, unfortunately, that debate always gets a bit skewed, because it's just not presented in a way where it's always tainted with the political divisiveness, instead of just being a separate issue. It shouldn't be a political issue. It should be a separate issue on its own. We all care about the planet. Everybody cares about the planet. And again, look, clean up. Clean up your own backyard. If we're polluting here too much, if we're doing things that aren't good for the environment, then let's fix them here. But there are also the biggest perpetrators are over in China. They're over in India. There's a couple billion people out there. And I feel like the left just lets them slide, and they want to hammer us. They're the biggest enemy to the left is Republicans, which is the craziest thing on the face of the earth. Until the Democrats realize that our enemies are out there, they're not in here, then we're never going to be able to solve a lot of these issues. I mean, infrastructure, that should be an easy issue. I was listening to someone talk about, she's from Singapore, and she said the first time she came to America, she thought it was like a third world country. I think she was in Boston or something like that, because in Singapore, they take care of their people. They take care of the infrastructure. Nothing's crumbling. If anything's falling apart, they fix it. It seems just like a common sense topic. If the roads are no good, if the schools are no good, if whatever it is, the bridges. I mean, that's insane to me. That, what was it? Something like 90% of our bridges are deficient in some capacity. Well, that sounds a little. Might be fairly dangerous, so we might want to fix that. But science, going back to science, it's not taught properly anymore. It should be taught as something separate from the political divisiveness. It shouldn't be attached to that at all. So if there's a gender debate going on, just lay out the facts. There's only two genders. I mean, I think, again, I've said this before, New York City has something like 100 genders. Well, that's just madness. If you're going to do stuff like that, then anything's up for debate. And this is what really gets to the heart of all the problems. I think there's, especially again in the Democratic Party, there's nothing that grounds them. They have this postmodern philosophy that nothing is really real, that everything is sort of just an abstract concept. It's subjective. It's malleable. That even science is malleable, that it's not grounded in any one thing. Well, if we say that, if we don't believe facts are facts, if that they're subject to change, certainly things that, especially things that we've known that we can prove, well, then, anything's up for grabs then we can never have a real debate, because you can always say, well, I'm sure, I can find, something to disprove that, or I just don't believe that, or whatever. Then we can't have any real substantive debates. There has to be objective information, and so that's the biggest problem with millennials and my generation and anyone that subscribes to this postmodern neo-Marxist theory, which is that nothing is really what it is, and that's how I think we've arrived at the place that we're at, where even science is being cherry picked, where we're questioning what's. We should, of course, be questioning what's true and what's not true, but the things that are accepted need to be accepted, and that's that. So I hate to harp on, one thing like gender, but it should not be controversial that there are only two genders. I mean, sweet Jesus. And then kind of getting off into a side branch there, I want to just, again, again, you're going to disagree with me, and this is I'm partially just espousing my views here. I mean, actually, not partially. That's really what this all is. I want to talk about social media and bullying and all that a little bit. I don't want to say social media is the root of all evils right now, but there's a clear coincidence between the advent of social media and the sort of the destruction of a civil society, let's put it that way. Social media comes around, and now people can say whatever they want. And social media often feeds into your worst impulses. How many times do people get in trouble for something that they posted on social media, a simple tweet or something like that? I mean, we got, for athletes or celebrities, you're going back 15, 20, 30 years sometimes in their lives, something they said when they were 15, 20 years old, and you're holding them accountable for that. I mean, it's madness. And where do these freaking trolls come from anyway? Who are these people that sit on these computers all day and find what someone said 15, 20? I would love to meet these people. Like, who are these people? Where are these people? I'm always seeing, like, when Mike Bloomberg, they, putting out clips of him and what he said about, stop and frisk 10 years. Who is finding these videos? I mean, I don't know. Maybe just type them in the Google. I don't know. But are people just sitting all day? Is that their job? They get paid for it? I don't know, but I would love to meet these people. Social media, and you always see these campaigns to stop bullying, anti-bullying. Well, it seems like there's more bullying now than ever. So clearly these campaigns are not working. I mean, you had to create a separate category called cyberbullying because it's so bad. Why don't we just put some restrictions on social media? Is that such a crazy idea? I mean, of course, first of all, these are private companies, so they can do whatever they want. So we can't get mad at a Facebook or something like that when they say, "Oh, I don't want to take down, political ads or something," even if they're lies. Because again, you don't want to restrict freedom of information or freedom of speech, but there can also be something as too much freedom. Because again, people, we love to cross the boundaries, and that's part of our human nature. We make mistakes. We go too far sometimes. So while I'm usually on the side of being more, saying, having more freedoms or letting the leash out, a little longer than, being more restrictive or something like that. And I'm willing to accept when, those times when people go too far, which is it's kind of at the heart of our nation. Hey, innocent until proven guilty. Unlike in France, where you're guilty until proven innocent. We say, okay, look, we're going to accept some casualties, some, indiscretion, some, bad things are going to happen. Unfortunately, sometimes that's part of life, because we would rather, free a guilty man than put away an innocent man. And that's kind of at the heart of our philosophy. And that's what makes it the greatest system in the world. But it also makes it, easy that we can take advantage of that freedom. And certainly now in this day and age when we're so comfortable, where, particularly my generation, we haven't had to suffer and work the way that our previous generations have. We've grown up selfish. We've grown up, with a silver spoon. Even the poorest among us are 10 times wealthier than, the King George III in, the 1700s or something like that. Even the poorest among us have an iPhone or an iPad. You don't have to ride a horse anyway. There's transportation if they need it. So we grow up far more privileged than any of our predecessors. Although I will say this is supposed to be the first time in our generation where we're not going to make more money than our parents' generation, and that is a serious problem. But even so, we've grown up too sheltered, and so we're taking advantage now of all the freedoms that we have. And social media has just sort of unleashed our worst desires, our worst impulses. Unfortunately, you're sitting there, you think of something, you get a feeling. We're human beings. Maybe you see something on the news or somebody says, and you get a strong feeling, and you just, because social media is right there at the tip of your fingers, you just shoot off a tweet, and then that's out there forever, and people can hold you accountable for that. And one, obviously, I don't think it's fair, because I think we all know that. I think we all know that social media is something we can do on impulse, and we can regret something, but yet we love to hold each other's feet to the fire for it. So it's like, you can't have it both ways. It's just, I think some sorts of restrictions. I would never say get rid of social media. I don't know what the answer is, quite frankly. I mean, I don't want to be like communist China where they censor everything, but I think some sorts of controls on it, because you hear people complaining about it constantly. So it's like when you hear people complaining about it constantly, well, let's do something then. instead of just complaining about it forever. Again, these are new things. These aren't things. It's not like social media has been around for hundreds of years. And not every new thing that's created is always great, or certainly. Hey, look, people like to refer to social media, the internet, as the wild, wild west, right? The wild, wild west of the internet. Well, we had to tame the real wild, wild west at some point. So, is it crazy to say we need to tame the internet and social media? I mean, it's people. Why do we have such a huge drug problem in our country right now? It's because people can get prescriptions from other countries so easily. I mean, we all hear the stories about China, lacing different drugs with fentanyl. They got all these factories, these labs over there. They're intentional, like they're killing us. They're literally murdering us. And again, I don't understand when people get on Trump for maybe the tariff idea isn't the best idea. I don't know, but it seems like nobody else is willing to do anything. It seems like nobody else has any answers. So at least the man's trying. China is by far our biggest enemy. I mean, they're literally they're killing us, and yet we keep going over there. We keep bending over backwards for them. We send all our business over there. We send all our manufacturing over there. And it's like they complain about the problem, but yet they just don't do anything about it. And I don't understand. I can't comprehend that. If you're seeing something, you're seeing something that's egregious, you see something that's wrong, do something. It shouldn't be this hard. Again, we make, what are we? Our income is what? GDP is what, 18 trillion or something like that. There's 11 trillion. If we just say, hey, we're going to pull out our businesses, we're going to pull out our manufacturing tomorrow, they're going to have to kowtow to us. But again, I don't know. I saw an interesting story about how they got all these spies over here, and not just like Chinese, just their own spies, which they have a lot of, but they're paying like Americans, who, and a lot of our universities, our teachers, our professors, because that's where a lot of our scientific research is done. For any, for people who don't know, we usually have the number one, the highest ranked colleges in the world, but it's misleading because a big reason our colleges are usually ranked so high is because of our research departments. It's not because of the teaching and our students and the teaching that goes on over there. It's really because of all the work that goes on in our research departments. And that's a big reason why you're paying such high tuitions, why these people at schools have huge endowment. You're paying for the teachers to do, and the schools to do research so that then they can get notoriety, so that they can, they can get their Nobel Prizes or whatever. That's usually why our schools are so highly ranked, and why you're paying such a high tuition. So you're paying for these people so they can, gloat and, get awards and well, sure. So some of this research is maybe even a lot of it's going to help mankind. So, hey, that's a decision for you to make. I mean, there's, they're doing incredible stuff at Harvard and MIT. I mean, there's a Harvard guy. He's got a team over there. He's working on anti-aging. He's said, there's a 60-minute interview I think he did a year ago where he was able to reverse the aging and the cells in pigs. And now he's moving on to dogs. He's doing trials on dogs. He said that should take about 10 years. And then in 10 years, he'll do trials on humans. And he hopes that within 20 years, he'll literally be able to reverse aging. So, and he's going to make it available to everyone. I mean, I can't imagine the chaos when that happens, but that sounds like research we could all get behind there. And hey, I got no problem. I'd be okay with paying taxes, if it went to something like that. Unfortunately, we're just paying, taxes for, spending our money on too much other crazy stuff. Now, I know I'm going off on a rant here, going off on a topic, but that's all right. I'll see where it goes. What was I saying? I was going back to China, though. Yeah, I'm sure people have heard reports. They're now basically they basically own Hollywood now. I mean, they've bought up a lot of our companies, especially the smaller ones, and now they have a lot of these deals in places to film movies in China, to shoot movies, and so that means they have a say in what goes on in our movies. So not only are things just being, it used to be just things were being censored when we released them in China, and that's one thing. But now they're censoring movies even when we see them. Like the popular one is that the Avengers, the Doctor Strange, the Avengers or the Marvel movie, where the monk played by I think Tilda Swinton had to become a Celtic monk or something like that, because originally it was going to be a Tibetan monk, but China hates Tibet and doesn't want them represented in the movies. So we didn't just change that for their movie, we changed it for the whole movie. I mean, that's crazy to me. That is crazy to me. how we're just letting them get away with this stuff. We're just letting them bend us over backwards. Google is providing a search engine over there, and they had to completely change it to fit the communist government's restrictions. And these companies, these people, they constantly defend China. I don't get that. I mean, you saw the craziness when Daryl Morey, the GM of the Houston Rockets, said that he supported Hong Kong. He's basically hasn't been heard of again. He may not even be alive. I don't know. But he's basically had to go into hiding because he said something that made sense. And then you saw the entire NBA. You saw LeBron James. I mean, I didn't like LeBron James before that. I always thought he was Weasley. But he really, solidified the fact that he's a scumbag when he said that, he agreed, we've got to watch what we say over here. We've got to be more careful, because all these NBA players care about is their Chinese money, because that's a huge market over there. And they got 1.3 billion people over there, and they love basketball. I mean, they're crazy about it over there. So, unfortunately, we've lost that patriotism, that defined us and worked so well for so many years. And it's not just Democrats again, or it's not just NBA. There's a lot of Republicans that do this. I mean, in some ways, they're the biggest offenders. You can go back to George Bush. He let in millions of illegal aliens to come in and work our fields and work our businesses and so on and so forth. Well, that's another one I love. I love how the left is trying to change every terminology, every word. You can't say illegal aliens anymore over my dead body, but they changed it to undocumented workers as if somehow that's better. But that's another topic of the changing of all our our vocabulary, all our words, how we speak. I mean, they're basically trying to control everything now. But what was I saying? The Republicans are the biggest offenders too. I think Reagan granted amnesty to 5 million illegals. So basically that's why they know if they just come over here, if they just hop over the border and they come to our country, and they know they're good, man. They know that, the chances of them getting sent back. We have sanctuary cities, for Christ's sake. We got, 300 of them. I mean, hey, look, if cities like Los Angeles or, if they want to take them all in, hey, knock yourselves out. But even New York, I think, has about a million illegals. And they've also got the homelessness problem, and everyone's complaining about it. Again, you hear constant complaining about it, but no one seems to do anything about it. And now you've got the mayor of Los Angeles, Eric Garcetti, saying that he's going to help people escape ICE, to elude ICE, and he's working with it blows my mind. This is the same guy that was supposed to try OJ and lost. So who's going to trust this fool? I mean, I get it. I don't get that liberal mentality. I don't understand why on God's earth would you want to try to help people evade the law. It dumbfounds me. I truly don't understand it. I can't comprehend it. Like, how does it help? How does it help your kids? How does it help your future? Look at your city. Look at your state. It's in a state of chaos. I mean, the homelessness problem it's completely out of control. I just read an article about how all of their sewage and feces, it's going into their beaches. Okay, people can't even go and swim in their beaches because there's so much shit from the homeless people that no one can go swim. I mean, this blows my mind. You're hurting your tourism. Who's going to want to come to these countries? Who's going to, these states from other countries? Who's going to want to fly into LAX and then be greeted by the smell of shit and, a bunch of homeless people? Nobody's going to want to do that. It's just crazy to me. I mean, that's why you had the white flight from California over the past several decades. People went to Washington and Oregon, even into Canada, because they were trying to escape all this craziness. Because all these Mexicans, all these South Americans were coming up and moving in, and now it seems like they just have no intention of saving their city. They're just going to let all the homeless be. And again, it sounds antithetical. It sounds completely hypocritical. I thought these were supposed to be the compassionate, humane people who want to help everyone, but apparently the homeless don't count. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense to me. It seems like they would be the ones who are in the most abject state of poverty, who have it the worst. They're the most down and out. They're the most downtrodden. So wouldn't it make sense to help those people most of all? Let's take a quick drink. Oh, sorry, talking a lot. But that's the state of the belief in liberal politics today. It's not America first anymore. It's America last, to say the least. If you're a foreigner, if you're an immigrant, you can get things that I don't know we don't even have access to here. You can do better. There's ways for you to skirt the law. Uh, again, there's that story about it was somebody I heard said he went to a hospital in California and he was Mexican and he said, "Hey, look, I'm here to pay my bill or what how much is it?" And they're like, "Yeah, no problem. Are you Mexican?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, don't worry about it. There's ways for you to just get by and skirt the law." And this is a guy that had money. He's like, "No, I want to pay." And they're like, no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I mean, how does this help? That's how does this help anybody? Because if we can't take care of our own here, if America goes under, how are we going to help any of these other people? How are we going to help other countries? So wouldn't it make sense to take care of our own people first, so that we can, have the ability to help others? I don't know. Again, that just seems like common sense to me. God, it feels like I'm getting a little gloomy here. Let's see what else I want to talk about. Oh well, the Oscars happened recently. And that movie Parasite won. I haven't seen that, but there's another perfect example of the state of the world we live in. Now I didn't see it. My mother actually said she saw it. She said she hated it. It probably wasn't good, but she's not her opinion is not exactly one I trust. And this, I wouldn't really trust a woman's opinion in general on movies, as horrible as that sounds to say. But they always they say everything is cute. So like when a movie's bad when a woman says it's cute, then it sucks. Because they think everything is cute. I mean, and it's what I always find so funny about women. I'm just going off here. I don't care. I feel like this happens constantly. Whenever I watch a movie with a girl or something like that, if it's terrible, again, like I said, they say it's cute, but they'll cry at the weirdest times. I always feel like I remember years ago, I was watching Twilight, one of those horrible vampire movies with a girl, and she was crying her eyes out, and I couldn't understand. I'm like, this is horrendous. And then we watched another movie. I can't remember what it was, but I don't know if it was. I forget what it was, but it was a really sad movie, and I'm like getting emotional over here, and she's like solid as a rock. She's like, I could really care less. So I always find that they like when when they should get emotional, they don't, but when they shouldn't get emotional, they do. I don't know. It's a little nugget right there of wisdom. But yeah, the Oscars happen, and right off the bat, you would think these people would have learned from, Ricky Gervais's, now epic. Little, I don't know what you want to call it, a rant or whatever, which was hilarious, by the way. To not, nobody wants to hear their political opinions. Nobody wants to hear it. Just do an award show. Go up there, receive your award, shut up, and sit down. And we'll all love you. We already love you. So like, just do whatever you want. Just be handsome, be beautiful. Go up there, accept your award. But one of the things people, of course, complain about constantly over and over again, and it was huge again this time around, the Oscars, was not enough minorities, not enough diversity, not enough women. Yeah, it's like, first off, a Korean film just won, which, first of all, I don't agree with. I don't think foreign films, I think they should stay in their own category. I don't think they should be winning. I know, I get it. It's the best movie. I get it. But again, there should be some sort of American first pride. There should be something. There should be some kind of, because I always look at it in reverse. Can we win a film? Are we winning films in Korea or somewhere else? Not that those have much meaning. I get it. America is the epicenter of entertainment and all these things. So people want to win awards here. So it doesn't, it wouldn't mean much if we go to Korea or wherever and win an award over there. But who knows? So times might change. I mean, as those worlds have become developed, it certainly could be. And the way that China and is buying everything up, who knows? Our awards could soon be over there. I could see that definitely. I could see like the Oscars or something like that. I could see them shifting around from different countries. It's probably inevitable. But at least until that happens, I just don't think we have an award for best foreign film. And it should stay there. But people, they complain about diversity and there's too many white people. Well, if you look at the last, again, Parasite won. They won a bunch of awards. And if you look at the last, I think 6 directors who have won Best Director, they've all been not only not white, but they've been, I think there were like 5 Mexicans won in a row. I think it was like Guillermo del Toro, some other guy, the guy that did The Revenant. So it's an annoying, ridiculous claim, and nobody wants to hear this stuff, and I don't know why these people don't listen. It's too much. It's frustrating, and when they're creating all this resentment on their own, and I get it. They live in this bubble, and they don't understand the real world. They're out of touch, and that's why we're in the state that we're in. But again, I wanted to try to keep it a little lighter. Trying to think of a recent movie that I saw. I saw oh God, what was it? Not I saw The Gentleman. That was all right, not great. It was a Guy Ritchie film, so it was very Guy Ritchie, it was very British. Matthew McConaughey was good though. Hugh Grant was freaking amazing. Hugh Grant was awesome. Oh my God. People make fun of that guy for his acting, but he was fantastic. I want to see that Aaron Hernandez documentary on Netflix. I haven't seen that yet. I heard that's pretty crazy. Oh, but the one thing that everybody should watch is, okay, excuse my language. It's called Don't Fuck with Cats, on Netflix, which is like a little 3-part documentary series on Netflix, which is crazy. So I want to ruin it, but I will go into it a little bit. Basically, there is this psychopathic dude who, I mean, funny in a sad way, but he's hilarious. He's so creepy, it's funny. Basically starts off murdering cats and posting videos online. And so there's, these people see it, and these like ardent group of I don't know, people who were so upset by these killing of these cats decided to start a Facebook group and try to catch this guy. I mean, these are people with day jobs, like, and not detectives or anything like that, not people who have any business doing this sort of thing, but they're so upset by it that they decide to try to catch this guy. And I won't tell you whether they do or not, although it's a true story, so you can look it up. It's a true story. You can look it up. They ended up catching this guy, and his name was Luca Magnotta, which is such a ridiculous sounding name. That was his actual name. And so they interviewed all the people that actually helped find this guy. They also interviewed the guy's mother, who was as soon as you hear her talk, you can understand like how this guy was so crazy. She's still she was one of those mothers who believe that the police framed her son, and he's a good boy and did nothing wrong. And you just like, what planet are you living on? Your kid was a freaking creep. I mean, you could see it in his eyes. And that's another thing actually I would like to talk about too. The kind of, we always say don't judge people by their looks, but you can tell a lot about someone by the way that they look. So I always thought that was such a ridiculous concept. But yeah, quickly, basically they spent hours and months and years it takes them to catch this guy. He's great at evading them, and there's nothing smart about this guy. He taunts them, but at one point they think that they I don't know, there's these like, apparently in Brooklyn there's like this biker looking gang who have like a TV show or something like that, and they're called, like, I don't know, Pet Rescue or something like that, and they're a bunch of like burly looking tough guys, and they like go around rescuing cats from they go around rescuing like abused animals from homes and stuff like that. And so they actually join the search, and so it gets some notoriety, and so now they got all this information flooding in. I've seen this guy here, I've seen this guy there, and so now it actually makes their search a lot harder, because now they keep getting all these bad tips that they've got to sift through. And so eventually, some idiot decides to post on their Facebook group, "Oh, hey, I did it. I'm the killer." And so now they just assume that they've got their guy. But if you look at the videos, any idiot with a brain could tell the guy in the videos. The guy's like 100 pounds soaking wet. The guy that when they looked at his pictures, who was stupid, and I mean, he brought it on himself. I mean, he was such an idiot for going on this internet forum and saying, "Hey, I did it." But, he was twice as heavy as the guy. Like, it clearly was not him. Clearly wasn't the same guy. Long story short, as horrible as it sounds, the guy ends up killing himself because, I guess, of all the abuse and hatred. And I think he was clearly disturbed in the first place, because why else would he go on that internet forum and say that he did it? But also, he was living in South Africa. The guy was from South Africa. These murders were committed in I don't know, I think Canada.
So nothing about it made sense. So then everything dies down, and months later, then this guy upgrades. He posts a video of him killing someone. He films him murdering someone, and so now this renews the hunt for them, for this guy, and so inevitably, eventually he screws up. I think he like puts the bodies in a trash can or something like that, and this the guy, the garbage man, finds him, and then eventually they catch him. But they had actually had him at one point before that. They had him. There's he was in Britain, and the head of like the Sun, a big newspaper over there, decided to like go and interview the guy like at the hotel, like confront him. But then nothing came of it. So the guy, of course, now he knew that they were onto him and that they could find him. So he ends up fleeing, and he ends up getting away for like another, I don't know, year or so. But it's very interesting. I would recommend watching. It's dark, obviously, but I did mention something. I'm some of the things I'm talking about are off the beaten path here, but they're thoughts that kind of come in my head. And I feel like they're thoughts that maybe come into other people's heads. I hope so. But I mentioned judging people by their looks. Now, again, you've heard this ever since you were a kid. Don't judge people by their looks, and I get the philosophy behind it. You don't want to, you don't want to judge a book by its cover. The intended philosophy, the intended meaning, I think, behind it is just like, don't give people a chance. You don't want to you could be wrong about them. But of course, the real truth is, at least most of the time, you're going. You can certainly pick up some things about them. I mean, right? Like if don't judge a book by its cover. Well, the cover of the book is probably going to tell you most of what's going on inside the book, right? I mean, unless it just doesn't, make any sense at all. But no, it's probably going to be some sort of representation of what the story's about, right? That only makes sense. So, because you also hear other things, your entire life, like, hey, you want to go, when you go for a job interview, you want to dress properly, right? You want to have a haircut, you want to look good. Because people judge you by how you look. You can't look like a scumbag or a sleazeball. So, basically what I'm getting at is you can, of course, decipher, you're not going to Sherlock Holmes, but you can, you're not going to know a person's whole story, but you can certainly figure out certain things about them. And again, they don't even need to talk. They don't even open, whenever you see a picture of like a serial killer, that guy that, killed all those kids, unfortunately, in Newtown. I mean, he looked like a serial killer. He looked like a psychopath. They usually have their eyes like glazed over. They usually look insane. That guy that sent all those bombs to Hillary Clinton and all those different Democrats, Caesar, whatever his name was, that Trump supporter. I mean, he looked insane. He looked at, there's usually something in the eyes. Now, I get it. This is a subjective thing, I guess. So that's why some people get so upset about it. But like, oh, no, you can't judge somebody just by the way that they look. But I don't listen to those people. Those people who don't know anything and just don't want to admit the truth. But you can. And so that kind of brings me to, gay people. Right? I think the problem with today is, again, it's the framing of these debates. You hear a common phrase like, love whoever you want to love. Or again, I don't care who you love. You can love whoever you want. Knock yourself out. I'm sure there's straight people that do, far more, heinous things behind the scenes than I'm sure, two gay people do. But it's the way that you act. It's all that comes with being gay. There's a lot more to it. That's why when you hear like a phrase like, oh, don't be gay, or that's gay, or that's, like I used that all the time as a kid. I used to say everything was gay. I mean, it's gay. It just meant, it doesn't mean you hate gay people. It just meant that it's kind of, fruity, or it's kind of girly, or it's kind of sissy. Is that so shocking? Hey, gay people, usually gay men, are very woman-like. They're like a woman trapped in a man's body. I mean, I don't think that's crazy to say. They have usually very, they like to dress in women's clothes. You see it constantly, especially nowadays, as free as they are. I worked with a guy who, had a purse. He wore women's clothes. He wore like a shawl or something he wore high heels. And, he used to come into work, and he would look, I don't know, he would like look for something. He's like, oh, where's my lipstick or whatever? And he would dump out his giant, purse. And it wasn't a man purse. It was a purse. He had everything short of like tampons, basically. I don't know. He might even had those. I don't know. But he was like 100 pounds, soaking wet. Had all the effeminate features. High voice, all that. I mean, you could tell he was gay from a mile away. This guy he didn't even need to talk. So yes, you can tell certain things by the way people look. Of course, the contrary to that is I saw his boyfriend at work a couple times, and the guy looked like a complete redneck. Like you would never have guessed that this guy was gay in like a million years. They made the funniest looking couple. It was hilarious. I don't even want to know how anything worked physically, but this dude was like 100 pounds soaking wet with like blonde hair and again wearing like women's clothes, and this dude was like 5 feet tall, just kind of short, fat, had like a cut off sleeveless shirt, or like a baseball hat. Like you would have never. So I all I'm saying is, you can tell things by the way people look, but yes, you shouldn't judge them completely. But being gay is much more. Again, nobody cares who you love. Like whatever you do behind the scenes is, knock yourself out. Again, but there is just much more that comes with being gay or being lesbian or being trans. Lesbians tend to be more manly, more masculine, more, butch. That's the way that it is. And now it's nothing for women usually to wear man's clothes, right? I mean, it's funny. Women have become much more masculine overall in general, whereas it would still be very weird for a guy to become more feminine. I hope that doesn't change at all. Trust me, there are liberal woke people trying to change that. I wish things weren't so binary. I wish and men are restricted by certain stigmas too. It's like we want those stigmas. We need those stigmas. We don't plan on wearing high heels or anything like that. Okay, we can accept girls wearing shorts and playing sports and all knock yourselves out because they look good in them. They've got the features for it. But trust me, men, we don't need your help. Thank you. We don't need to. There's no stigma that needs to be ended. That's just not us. It would be far too strange. Now we have become. It's sort of a weird dichotomy. Like we've become more manly in one aspect, where like we're all taking steroids, we're all juiced out. We love to be huge brolic monsters, but we also like to have nice hair. I don't know, maybe get highlights, get earrings, or we like to get dolled up in a weird way too. So this is sort of this weird dichotomy. But all I'm just trying to say is, of course, you shouldn't be, taking one look at a person and then just deciding everything about them, whether you like them or don't like them. That comes down to their actions. But yes, the point is, the truth is, if you see a gay person, you can probably assume what they're going to think, and feel, what they're going to relate to, what they're not going to relate to. That's why it's the same with minorities, the same with white people, the same with all different people. Certain groups have their certain beliefs, and whether that comes from the environment, whether it's intrinsic. I mean, you can probably assume gay people are probably born that way, right? So it's intrinsic, it's inculcated in them. So that's why. I don't really have a problem. One, there's nothing they can do about it. And also, look, there's nothing wrong with them. They're abnormal. That's just to say that they're not normal, but that's not to say that there's necessarily something wrong with them. They can do what they want to do, but it's going too far. Like, you don't need to have gay pride parades. Like, you don't need to, you're just being inappropriate at that point. If you're going out and like wearing like a G-string or something, that's just being inappropriate. That's just not being a good, civilized member of society. I don't understand why these things are up for debate. I don't understand why they're controversial topics. I don't think I'm saying anything crazy. I think I'm saying things that most people, if they think about it, if they're, if they listen, maybe this is the first time they're hearing someone, I don't know, talk this openly. I don't know. I never hear anybody else talk like this. But I think that these are actually common sense things. Now maybe, I don't know, maybe I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but, gay people, look, it's got to be tough growing up. I mean, I get that, and gay, especially transgender. Who was it? Dwayne Wade just came out and said that he's going to support her son. I don't know. I think he's a boy, but he's going to transgender to a girl. Now, this is a whole other debate. I mean, do you give kids hormones and say, here, go on your path and cut off your your honker and At 12 years old, I can't imagine how you can side with that. I don't like. I get it. You want to make your kid happy, and in the world we live in, where parents just that's all they want to do. For whatever reason. I don't know if part of it stems from when they were growing up. You hear about all the horror stories. Oh yeah, my parents just let me wander out, and they didn't care where I went, and they used to beat me. I think a lot of it stems from that. But we've gone too far again to never wanting to say no to your children. And again, I'm sure I saw pictures. I've seen him act. He looks like he's as gay as a blade, but that doesn't mean that he's going to be trans. It doesn't mean he should transgender into a woman, because again, there's some evidence to this. Some studies that have been done that most gay people, most gay kids end up, or people who want to transgender end up just being gay. But now you've done irreversible harm to him. You've given him hormones. You've turned him into a different gender, and you've made his life exponentially harder. I mean, you got to assume, number one, his life is probably going to be hard enough, even in the world today, to be gay, for him to accept that, that he is. How are you doing the right thing by him? And then we get into the whole, it's kind of full circle here. When I started off with about the him, her, the pronoun thing and how the judge ruled on that here. But that's just, it opens up, you're putting the kid at a disadvantage. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to judge another person's parenting style, but you're why not talk to the kid? Why not put him in therapy? Why not try some other conservative treatments before you do something that might be irreparable? And that's all I'm really saying here. I look at everything from both sides. There's a debate to be had, but in what other instance would we, say, putting, injecting hormones and having surgery on your child, it would be good. I mean, it's akin to child abuse in some sense, but it's because of this parental need to never ever want to say no to your kid. You never want to say no. It's always about positive reinforcement. And, I want to be their friend now. And, I don't ever want them to be mad at me. And I can get all that. I get all where that's coming from. And I'm not a parent, but sometimes you just have to say no. It's teaching them, not only preparing them for the real world, but it's going to help them understand that you can't have everything, and you will be doing them a service in the long run versus just, the immediate gratification of now. I mean, what happens if this kid changes his mind in 5-10 years? Or again, you're opening up a whole nother can of worms that I just don't think is necessary. I need another quick drink here. Yeah, starting to get tired. Let's finish on a lighter note here. Excuse me. I wanted to. Well, let's see. What do I want to talk about? We could talk about. So let's see something fun to come off the top of my head. What about girls with tattoos? That just came out of nowhere. I always kind of want to talk about girls with tattoos. I personally like girls with tattoos, but number one, it matters where they are. I'm horrified if I see a girl with a tramp stamp. I mean, that just sends all the wrong messages. Or a girl that's covered in them, littered with them. It's not good. But it depends. All right. Basically, it brings, and I bring this up because I had dated a girl. This is a few years ago now, though. But she didn't have any visible tattoos. She couldn't see them. I shouldn't say where they are, but basically, she ended up getting a couple tattoos as we were dating. So she didn't have any originally, and then over the course, as I was dating her, she started getting these huge, massive, freaking murals on her body. One covered her entire leg, another covered her entire torso almost. I mean, it's unsettling. It's very unnerving, especially going from not having seen anything to seeing I don't know, I forget what it was. It was some clown that was oozing fire or something out of its nose. It's very unsettling. But I like some tattoos on a girl. I don't understand like the little ones when they have them like on their wrist or a little stamp. That's just stupid. And God forbid they have a tramp stamp. That's just an absolute no. But I do like a girl with some tattoos. I like a sporty girl. Um, I don't like really dainty girls. I don't like really girly girls. Um, Hopefully, I would like to find a girl that doesn't have like a small white dog, because it seems like every girl I date has a small white dog, and that's just, trust me, that's no fun for everybody. You're always shooing the damn thing off the bed. It's always, yeah, it's a problem. There's always hair everywhere. It gets bad after a while. But yeah, I like a girl that just, yeah, I want her to be. Of course, she's got to be smart. I mean, you want smart and pretty. Who doesn't want that? Everybody wants that. It's hard to find though. But I like a simple girl. There's something about like a poor girl almost that's attractive. Like a rich girl, of course. Yeah, that's nice. But there's something about, I don't know, something innocent about like a girl who's had to struggle a little bit, or has had like a harder life. Um, I don't know what it is. Maybe that sounds a little weird, but something about it just, I don't know, it's intriguing. I don't know, it's almost like you can kind of sense, like, they're not full of themselves usually. um you don't ever want to date like a girl who's like a bartender or something. Again, going back to judging people by the way they look, you can spot a girl who's a tramp from a mile away. I mean, usually they're loud, they're boisterous, they drink too much. That's another thing. I hate girls that drink too much. That's a total turnoff. A girl, she smokes a little weed or something like that. That's cool. That's fine. But I dated a girl once who, she was a nice girl. She seemed like, she was like a proper, upper middle class girl, but she drank like a lot. She was always like, whenever she was nervous or something, or like I brought her over one. I went to a dinner with her once, and she's like, oh yeah, I just took 5 shots of vodka because I was nervous. I'm like, that's not the way to deal with something. Don't just drink because you're nervous. But I didn't say that. I wouldn't, because I'm not the kind of person like, all right, if you've got that kind of a deep flaw to me, well, I'm not going to try to change you. I'm just gonna, split off from you. I'm just gonna be like, you know what, you're probably not the right person for me. Because one, I feel weird. I feel weird trying to change somebody. It's not something I want to do. Maybe someone else will be okay with it. And I don't know, maybe I should say something. I don't know, maybe I should say something, because we all have our flaws. I know I have flaws. And then part of me hopes someone would actually tell me about them, would tell me what flaws I have. So I'm not going around doing the same thing over and over again. But yeah, a girl, she can't be a heavy drinker. That just creeps me out. Again, she wasn't like an alcoholic or anything like that. But it's just, take it easy. Take it easy with the sauce there. But I would like a girl who, of course, has her own job. She doesn't have to, I don't want a woman who stays at home or anything like that. Smart, of course, sophisticated, pretty, all that. A couple tattoos would be nice. I don't mind that. But and again, she can't be named like Brittany or something like that, or it's got to be like a classier name, like I don't know what's a nice name, but not the typicals. I don't want like a Brittany, or maybe like a Stephanie or something like that's okay. I don't know, but again, you can spot a girl who's a train wreck from a mile away, and they're often the most fun. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they're usually a heck of a lot of fun, but it's never gonna last. What do you get, 2 months of unbelievable, sex or whatever, and then that's it. And she's cheating. She's got a boyfriend already. It's just crazy. It's just not worth it. So, it's any guys out there, I would say just try to find a good girl. One who doesn't need a lot of things. And I would always say, my biggest fear was I used to not hit on girls a lot, because my thinking was not that I was necessarily afraid, but my thinking was I wanted them to come up to me first, because then that way I knew. Now maybe I don't have the highest self-esteem. I'm decent. I'm a confident guy, but I always kind of felt like, well, if they came up to me first, then I knew for sure, without a doubt, that they liked me. So, I'm gonna take another quick break. All right. Hello again. We're back. Just about to wrap things up here. I just wanted to spend the last few minutes just talking about the Red Sox, because anyone who knows me knows I'm a huge Red Sox fan. And yeah, that's they just started today. Spring training just started today. Today was the first game. So anyone who knows a Red Sox fan knows that unfortunately they traded away their best player, Mookie Betts, and they traded him along with David Price. And I've thought about this, and again, I don't hate it. I was never a big fan of Mookie Betts. Now he's a great player, great outfit, one of the best in the game. He's number 2 in terms of wins against replacement, only behind Mike Trout. But I don't think the reason they traded him was because he only had 1 year left on his contract anyway. And he was probably going to leave after that. And he wanted $430 million, which is just insane. And I think they offered him like $300 million. So they were a ways apart. But he was only 28, right? He's in the prime. If they could have kept him for cheap, I would say absolutely. It's just when they traded him, what they got in return was they got a good youngster in Alex Verdugo. Then they got a couple other prospects who seem like they're pretty good. So I don't hate it. It wasn't a great trade. I'm sure if the Yankees would have made that trade, they would have gotten freaking the best 5 prospects the Dodgers had. But I don't hate it. I mean, we needed to save money. We were going way over the payroll, and the luxury tax is the big reason. Now the Red Sox came out and said it wasn't monetary, but we all know it is because this would have been their 3rd straight year going over the luxury tax, and they would have had to pay some exorbitant amount of money. And they also, of course, they have the whole situation with Alex Cora and the cheating scandal, and baseball still has not come out with their decision on the punishment for the Red Sox. Obviously, the Red Sox fired Alex Cora, and they did that at their own behest because I'm sure they had to do that. I mean, there's been so much fallout from this baseball scandal; it's crazy. The Astros are going to have a rough season. I mean, Josh Reddick, I think the other day said he's a baseball player for the Astros. He said that they've been receiving death threats, that he fears for the safety of his kids and his family. I mean, now that's obviously too far. That's obviously crazy, but it's going to be a rough season, not just from the fans and stuff, which I can only imagine. And they're not just going to get it from road fans. They're going to get it from their home fans too. I would assume so. But the pitchers are going to throw at them. I mean, it's going to be rough. I mean, there's going to be, I can only imagine the amount of fights. I mean, every pitcher is going to want to throw at them. So it's going to be a rough year. And that's why they brought in Dusty Baker. We brought in an old, Grizzly vet, a guy that, is obviously a great baseball guy, but, I'm sure, he's been around a clubhouse for a long time. So he knows how to manage people, and they want him. That was a smart hire. But, the reason players are so upset is because they feel like the Astros players, these are they were the ones who, while they maybe didn't technically start it, they were certainly the ones who kept it going, because as the stories have reported, other, coaches, other people have tried to say, hey, you need to stop. But, Carlos Beltran, who was apparently one of the big leaders, Alex Cora was one of the masterminds. He wasn't a player, but, he was one of the masterminds, and they kept it going, and there hasn't been any punishment for those players, and so that's why a lot of guys are upset. I mean, look, when Aaron Judge or Mike Trout, when they come out and say something, then it's serious, because those guys never say anything. And Altuve he's a little weasel. The guy's a little weasel. He stole an MVP from Aaron Judge in 2017. I mean, the Astros beat the Red Sox in 2017 in their first round. Who knows? Maybe if they didn't cheat, because those first couple of games in Houston, the Red Sox got rocked. But then when they came back to New England, to Boston, the first game the Red Sox won, and then the second game they only lost by it was within 1 run. So who knows? I mean, they should absolutely have to vacate the title. I think I'm not usually one that's for that. This is sort of an unprecedented situation. I get it. It's a slippery slope. I'm sure there's been far more cheating in baseball and sign stealing, but you're allowed to do it organically, not using a video. But I don't know. The more and more I think about it, I'm I'm okay with vacating the title. You can't give it to anybody else because who knows? They cheated out the Yankees in 2017 in the playoffs, and then they cheated out the Dodgers in the World Series. So, but I'm okay with vacating the title at this point. I think it's the only reasonable thing you can do because you gave immunity to the players, so now there's really nothing you can do. But I worry about what happens with the Red Sox. I mean, they just everything's kind of in disarray over there, and they still haven't brought out, given down the punishment. And spring training's started now already, so I don't know. I wish they would kind of just get it over with at this point. I hope they didn't. I don't know what they did. I mean, the reports say Alex Cora did it there in 2018 too, when the Red Sox won their title. So I don't know. I'm worried. And the Red Sox, to be fair, they had that cheating scandal with the Apple Watch and the Yankees. Before that was in 2017, and they didn't even have a good year that year. So, yeah, it's going to be a rough season for the Red Sox and the Astros, and I think baseball's already been on the decline in terms of attendance. I mean, it's not America's great pastime anymore. I mean, it's still, or maybe that's what people want it to be, but football's kind of taken over, and I think it's going to be a rough year for baseball, although maybe it'll excite more people, draw in more fans, because it's certainly going to be interesting. All right, that's my time for today. I thank everybody for listening. Thank you.